All right, so good evening, everyone. It is 6:19. It is April 18th, and this is a regularly scheduled select board meeting. We are reconvening after an executive session where the board took no action. I asked then, and I will ask again, John, was this meeting properly warned?
Yes, Ian, it was.
Excellent. Thank you very much. In that case, we're going to move on. And just for the record, it sounds like our live stream isn't working right at the moment. We decided to get moving with the meeting just because we're already 5 minutes late, but hopefully it should be going any moment now. I have much faith in our BCT brethren to get it going. So good luck to them, and hopefully you'll be able to live stream it any moment. With that, I'll move on to agenda item 2, approval of the minutes. And I look to a board member.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Franz has made a motion to approve the minutes of April 4th, 2023. Is there any discussion of the minutes?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that's going to carry 5-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is chair remarks. So I only have one remark this evening. It's come to my attention and the attention of the rest of the Brattleboro Select Board that there has been hate speech that has been directed at town employees. I want to be very clear that that is completely unacceptable. Our professional, dedicated staff are committed to public service, and they deserve our utmost respect. We expect the public to remain civil in their discourse and refrain from hate speech, bigotry, racism, and malicious gossip. And I want to be clear that I will hold us all to that standard in these select board meetings and any time that I'm conducting myself as a select board member or as a member of this public. Our town staff have chosen to work in our inclusive community, and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, and we stand by them. We also hope that others in our community will join us in denouncing misinformation, both direct and indirect slights directed towards our excellent and caring town staff members. Thank you. I will now move it on to agenda item 4, which is town manager.
Thank you, Ian. Just had a couple things tonight. I wanted to update you all on that fact that several senior staff met with representatives from Green Mountain Power last week to debrief on the storms from this winter and some of the improvements that Green Mountain Power is making to the electrical grid. The key takeaways that we had were that the sense from Green Mountain Power is, and I believe as of our staff as well, is that the weather really has changed. And we can be expecting more storms with heavy, wet snow pretty much all winter long. Because of this, the Green Mountain Power will be hardening main lines in town, as well as undergrounding a lot of the more remote lines throughout the region. They will be doing that over the next 10 years and done kind of based on power reliability and also where outages have occurred. So that they let us know that will mean that some of the more rural areas like Newfane, Wardsboro, and Jamaica will get the most immediate attention, but ultimately it will also affect large areas in Brattleboro as well. They also have been working on better communication plans and strategies during storms. So there's going to be some updates to how they're communicating to people. And they also reminded us that we should remind people to have their own emergency plans in place before storms. So that is, I think, something that the town staff will be looking to provide information about and encourage people to be doing that before next winter. I also have an update on childcare costs for RTM, which you'll recall is something that we had several conversations about with the last board. And I just wanted to let you know that we ended up spending $537.50 for sitters at the informational meeting. and $195 for stipends to 2 RTM members, or a total of $732.50 for childcare expenses. Staff will plan to budget $1,000 for RTM childcare expenses, which you can consider in the FY25 draft budget. And then the last thing I wanted to do was to cede some time to Sue Fillion, if she is here, for an announcement. If you have a chance there, Sue.
Thank you, John. I don't think this is new news to all of you at the select board table, but Brattleboro was awarded the strongest town on Friday from Strong Towns. Strong Towns is an organization. They're an advocacy organization, kind of started by a former engineer who they're really about making communities livable through bottom-up action. And so there's a strong planning nexus with housing and transportation and to the work that the select board does with being financially resilient for the community. So I want to thank Sarah Lang, who's a planning commissioner who kind of spearheaded this whole application, Steve Hayes in the planning department, Tom Mosikowski, and myself. We all worked on the application together. Seth Thomas, the communications coordinator, gave us great access to the photos that really helped make our application, and to all the community members and friends of Brattleboro that voted to support our community. We'll be awarded the award on May 31st. Strong Towns has a workshop conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. Sarah's unable to go, so myself and Steve Hayes will be attending. Strong Towns will bring us down there, and we'll be able to attend their workshops. So we're really, I think it's a great testament to the people of Brattleboro who all work together to make our community more livable.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, Sue.
And that's all I had tonight.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Board members, we're going to move on to agenda item 5, which is select board comments and committee reports. Board?
I have an announcement. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah.
So I want to remind people that at 4:30 on Wednesdays, I will be at the library from 4:30 till 6:30. I'll be in one of their conference rooms on the mezzanine level. And you, everyone, are invited to come and talk to me and talk to each other and just have a discussion about whatever's on your mind with regards to the town and events. So again, Wednesdays, 4:30 to 6:30 at the library. Come and we'll have some interesting conversations. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Franz. Any other board members? Seeing none, we're going to move on to public participation. So this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on anything that's not on the agenda or to request for an item on the consent agenda to be pulled. So I will look to the room first.
I'm Dale Joy. I'm from Brattleboro, and I have something to say about a police officer that lied on a legal document. That should have never happened. He knew it. We had an argument about it in my apartment. Nothing has been done, and I have called everybody about it that I knew that could get something done. And I even called John. And he's the only one who has talked to me about this. I don't know what the police are doing, but they shouldn't be hush-hush if an officer is lying on a legal document.
I'll move next to the room. I see Dick DeGray.
Oh.
Welcome, Dick.
Yes, thank you. A question for you. And when I look at the agenda and you have an executive session, you never list what the executive session is for on the agenda, nor do you mention it, what the executive session is about when you come out and start the meeting. And I believe you have to do that. to tell us what the executive session is all about. You certainly did say that there was no action, but we don't know why you went into executive session.
Okay, thank you, Dick. Yeah. So I will confirm with Attorney Fisher, who is our town attorney, to make sure that we're complying with the law. But every time the select board makes a motion to enter into executive session, we state very explicitly the reasoning for why. That happened today at 5:15. Actually, it was more like 5:19 because one of our board members was a little bit late and we didn't want to get started without them. That is during a public meeting. The meeting just starts earlier because we need time to do the executive session before the 6:15 start time. That's the time when we talk about the reasoning for going to executive session. It's public, so I can tell you that it was to discuss EMS contracts and collective bargaining agreements, which are two items that we are allowed to talk about in executive session. Pursuant to a modification of the executive session motion practice that the board does about a year ago, we made change. We now are more in line with the statutory requirement. We make two motions. One, we make a motion on reasoning for why we're going to talk about a particular type of issue like contracts or collective bargaining. And then we open the room for discussion. That discussion can be both from the community, can also be from the select board. We then make a vote on that motion. And then we have a second motion, which is then to move into executive session. And we, at that time, invite anybody who's in the room that we want to come with us. And for today, we invited town manager, assistant town manager, and town attorney Fisher, who was here. So hopefully that answers Dick's question for tonight. And I'll ask whether we need to make sure that we're saying that again afterward, but I'm pretty sure that we're complying fully with it by talking about it at the beginning when we make the motion. Anyone else in the room? Yes.
Does this get shorter? Hi, I'm getting over laryngitis, so forgive me. My name is Bonnie Gervin. I'm president of the board at Morningside Commons Association. We are a 166 dwelling of condos on Royal Road, so you know we're going to be very much impacted by the soon-to-be closed 142. My concern is we're on both sides of Royal Road. We have lots of children. We have a swimming pool. We have tennis courts, people walking their dogs. My concern, once 142 is closed or Vernon Road is closed, from the bottom of Royal Road to the Malfunction Junction, that we're going to have through traffic going through there. We would like very much for those gates to be accessible for emergency vehicles. I want to make sure. I have a board meeting in 2 nights. I want to be able to tell all the residents there that there won't be a problem with the fire trucks having to go all the way around, and that they'll be able to access us by those 2 gates, one at the bottom of Royal Road and one going into the cemetery on South Main Street. So since maybe the fire department's here, maybe they'll be able to address that question. And I would very much not like to see all kinds of traffic running through Royal Road. We have enough problems now with drugs and people selling drugs in our parking lot. And it would be very good if we can keep that not a throughway accessible by anyone but the people who live at Morningside Commons. There's a lot of us, there's a lot of doctors and lawyers, but there's mostly a lot of senior citizens there. So it's really important that we feel safe and we can stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. I want to keep the meeting moving along, and as it's public participation, I don't want to spend too long in it, but I would invite you to speak with the town manager and the fire department either tomorrow before your meeting or also tonight while they're here, and make sure that you get answers to your questions. And I think we all can agree that making sure that our community members have access, emergency vehicles have access to them is really critical and important. So let's make sure that we get an answer to you before your meeting tomorrow night. And if we can't get a full answer by then, as soon as possible. Absolutely. Anyone in Zoom? Seeing none. Any others on? Okay. And is there anyone else in the room now who'd like to speak? Okay. And that's going to be it. And then we'll move on. Go ahead.
Yeah, Steve Zaluzny. And I just want to make sure I'm not a resident of town, not a voter here, but I'm a taxpayer, business person. So it's okay to speak. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. No, I like to just ask so we just know where you're from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've got a lot of things to talk about.
You got 3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to be as quick as I can and terminate whatever. But I really need to talk to some people individually, the town manager. I'd like to talk to some new people on the board, and I'll try to do that. But I'm just putting some things out there that are concerns for me as a resident of, this town or this area for 67 years. Obviously, the terrible murder and the shootings that have happened recently are on my mind, and there's a lot of frustration there involving those things, obviously, for me, and I'm assuming for a lot of other people. We've got issues with shelters, and we've had problems in town that haven't really changed a lot in 50 years since I was in high school. We've had we've tried to absorb a lot of people who need help, and we've added more shelters, and I'm not sure if that's really best for our community as a whole. Yes, we can help people, and I believe in helping people, but we have to look at how we're going to do that, in my opinion. Some of it's policy. I've gone to Coffee for Cops, talked to people, and they said policy is an issue. Some of that's state policy. So how do we deal with that? I've talked to some of the representatives as a start. It bothers me because it seems like a lot of these problems, there seems to be some acceptance and resulting apathy. And that's to me is very sad under these conditions. I'm not sure. I don't have all the answers, but I think improvements can be made. And I'll discuss those with some of the people involved with the board. And if you've got any other suggestions, give them to me. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Steve. Rick?
Thank you, Rick Morton. I had a resolution at the RTM, which was not successful. It had to do with setting up a work group to review the process, not the process, but review the status of to what degree there is trafficking, human trafficking, whether it's labor trafficking or sex trafficking in our region. And that was not successful. I take the responsibility for not really advancing that very well. And I'd like to just address the select board. And I have some additional information that I have put together. I'm not sure the best way of getting that to you guys. I have copies for each of you. And just to maybe begin a discussion process of as a citizen, what we might be able to look at, how we could do it the best way, what your thoughts are about how to go forward with that. And so
I'll get the documents and distribute to the select board. And then also, as I know for myself, emails on space.
Yeah. Okay. There. Yeah. Yeah. Let me just mention that one of those pages is simply an index of a larger document, and the purpose I've including that, basically it's a table of contents, is to show the tremendous variety of and creativity of people when they want to do something nefarious. I mean, human beings are creative either way they go. And so that really lists some of the very unusual kinds of activities that could be infiltrated by people who are doing trafficking. And maybe some of that doesn't impact our community. Maybe a lot of it doesn't impact our community, but some of it may. And so that's really just for you folks to look at. I believe I have enough copies there for John to also get a version.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rick. Okay.
Say something. For the last two speakers, let me just say that these are the kinds of issues I'm hoping to hear about in my office hour time. I don't know if any of you is available tomorrow between 4:30 and 6:30, but at the very least, it gives me an opportunity to plug my office hours once more and say that I'll be at the library during those hours. And if you or others want to come and talk, that's what it's all about. Thank you.
Did you get them to come and talk?
I don't have to answer that question.
That's true. Okay, thank you very much for the public participation. We really appreciate it. We're going to move on to agenda item 7, which is the consent agenda. John, can you speak briefly to the 2 items we have before us?
Yes, Ian, we have 2 items tonight. The first is a standard approval of how we're addressing transportation in the town, that by confirming this approach, we are eligible for funding from the state, and it's something that we do every year. The second item is approving purchase of a dump truck to replace one that will be traded in. And by approving the agenda, the board would approve the purchase of a replacement HD 11 dump truck for $170,227.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Board, I find sometimes our agenda item titles can be pretty convoluted, and I'm just tickled by how simple dump truck approved purchase is. So great one. Is there anyone wish to pull an item from the consent agenda? In that case, I would take a motion.
I'll motion.
Yep. Okay. So Peter has moved to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That's going to carry 5-0. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 8, which is the unfinished business. 8A is the parking ordinance change at the community schoolhouse and municipal center. I'll invite Sue to the table. Board, as you'll recall, we had our first reading of this ordinance change last meeting, and so this is the second reading / presentation and potential adoption. Sue, do you have any additional?
Do you want me to give you a quick overview? I have nothing additional to add from the last hearing.
Maybe just a brief one. We've got new community members here.
Sure. So I'm asking you to hold a second hearing on parking ordinance amendments to Chapter 16 and Appendix C. There's kind of 2 amendments going on, but changes in multiple places because the ordinance is long and lists lots of different streets. The first ordinance amendment is to remove the parking meters from the municipal center parking lot. So they were physically removed in the spring of 2022 when then town manager Manali asked that they be removed, kind of in recognition that the people that are using them have appointments, might have limited income, and didn't need to be paying for the parking because the spaces were turning over. So one is to just codify that action that staff continues to support today. And then the second one is that there are currently 2 parking spaces on Oak Street closest to High Street. They are in front of the community schoolhouse. And we've put up some signs asking that they be left open for student drop off at certain hours of the day, but enforcement of it has been difficult. So Traffic Safety Committee is recommending that those be made a loading zone where people, they're basically striped out as a loading zone. People cannot park there continuously. There's, I think, a 15-minute loading period. So with the idea that parents might be able to, or guardians might be able to pull up, have their students get in or out. So that is what we're requesting. They are a school, they're an accredited school, and they need safety for their students. They don't have a lot of room in their parking lot for buses to maneuver through there or to have guardians dropping off. So
great. Thank you very much, Sue. Board, can I get a motion to start off this conversation? Liz.
I move to adopt the changes to Chapter 16, Traffic, Article 6, stopping and standing and parking. Section 2, parking meter areas, and Appendix C, regulations governing the control of traffic.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Liz. So board members, discussion, questions for Sue or John? We had some discussion on this last meeting. Liz?
I remain in support of both measures.
Great. Yep. Okay, I'll turn it over to the public. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this item? No one in the room. I see no one on Zoom. In that case, Liz has made a motion to adopt the changes to Chapter 16, Traffic Article 6, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Section 2, Parking Meter Areas, and Appendix C, Regulations Governing the Control of Traffic. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That's going to carry 5-0. Thank you very much. So, all right, we're going to move on to agenda item 8B, Select Board Housekeeping I, Select Board Retreat Planning. Turn it over to John.
Yes, thank you. So as we discussed at your last meeting, staff are putting together plans for a select board retreat, and we expect this to be held on Saturday, June 3rd, tentatively scheduled from 9 to 2. This will, of course, be a properly warned meeting, and anybody would be welcome to attend. The venue will be an off-site location, but somewhere in Brattleboro is the expectation. Right now, agenda items we're considering to include, and we'd love to get feedback on this if you have any, is first of all, creating a shared vision. Second, department heads providing goals or priorities for the FY24 and the FY25 budgets. What are they planning to work on in the next 2 years? Then turning it over to have a select board conversation about goals or priorities that you may have for fiscal year 24, and then goals or priorities that the select board might have for building the fiscal 25 budget. And so that's the general agenda that we were thinking, and we believe that that 9 to 2 time period will allow us to cover those issues fairly well. We are also, we've been discussing the possibility of sending the select board a short questionnaire prior to the meeting to help frame the visioning discussion. So that's what we're thinking. If you have any feedback or suggestions, it'd be great to hear them now, or contact me offline and be happy to incorporate anything that you might have. So.
Great. Thank you very much, John. So there's no motion required for this item. So we just have a little bit of brief discussion from the board and from the public. And just to remind us all kind of where we are at procedurally with this, we had a discussion last select board meeting about whether we even wanted to do this as an idea, which is different than past years when the board has adopted goals. John brings his experience, his skill and knowledge to this role and thinks that this would be a good idea. The board agreed that it would be a good idea last meeting. And so he's provided just some additional information for us to consider. So is there any other thoughts on this additional information, board members? Anything that you feel like you want to add?
I remain supportive.
Excellent. Daniel?
Yeah, I think the questionnaire in advance would be helpful.
Agreed. Franz?
I think it's a great idea. I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, and I'll look to the public, see if there's anyone who wishes to speak on that item. None. If you want to raise your hand and then I can recognize you, because I'm just going to look to make sure. Okay, yeah, please.
Thank you. My name is Jana. I live in Brattleboro, and I also hope that you get some really nice food for your event.
So we all know that Jana's word is the law. So we'll have to make sure we implement that immediately, John.
Okay, thank you.
I'm so glad you spoke up.
That might be my favorite comment of the night. Okay. Okay, well, not seeing any other comments. Thank you very much, John, for providing that information, and we'll look forward to that meeting on the 3rd of June.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to move on to unfinished business 8B2, or II, which is the Select Board Rules of Conduct. So, board, as you'll recall, last meeting we did a a once through of the proposed rules of conduct for meetings and hearings of the Brattleboro Select Board. There were some requests for modification and changes and a couple of additions from various members of the board. You can see those changes reflected in the redlined copy that is in the backup material. They are, just to sort of highlight them, Daniel asked for all gendered terminology to be removed so that the document is now gender neutral. I requested for the sort of proposed layout of an agenda item to be sort of more explicitly explained in item 8.6 in our rules of conduct, and you can see those changes there. As we discussed before, the idea is if someone had never been to a select board meeting, if they found on our new website that's so easy to navigate that our rules of conduct, they would be able to go to this and see kind of what an agenda looks like and how they would participate and what they could expect each item to look like. So after that kind of brief presentation, are there additional comments or additions? Daniel.
On the last page, page 5, which is page 37 in the packet, there's the procedure for consideration of select board agenda items. And I understand why this change was made. I think it might be a little confusing. So section 2A says, one of the ways that you can get something on the agenda is by written request of a select board member by 5 p.m. the Monday prior to a scheduled meeting. So if you take a look at the calendar for May, our first meeting is on May 2nd, which is a Tuesday. We always meet on a Tuesday. And the Monday prior to that is May 1st. So if somebody submits an item by 5 p.m. on Monday, May 1st, can it be considered in the next meeting? No, because you've already published the agenda the Friday before that.
I think that's a very, very good point.
That's really bad.
And unless I'm missing something.
No.
So we need to clarify that. Yeah. I think the intention of this edit was.
I know the. Yeah. Sorry,
I'm not. Sorry, I know you know. I think for just the record here, the intention is that Monday be the Monday, the prior Monday, the week before Monday.
Hard to say that.
Yeah. Right. So it's a little tricky when we're looking at a document here that we're looking to hopefully adopt tonight. If we make changes that are not substantive to sort of that don't need additional review, I think we can ask those changes be made and still adopt. But I kind of leave that to the town staff if you feel comfortable.
I just have a suggestion.
Yes.
You could say the Monday a week prior to a scheduled meeting.
Yeah.
Can you just designate a set amount of days? Because now it would be like 3 literal business days prior to. Is that a reasonable?
It's not
thing, or is that just too confusing?
We actually want it to be so every meeting's on a Tuesday, so it would be Monday, Sunday, Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. So actually it'd be 9 days.
Oh, I was just using 3 as an example.
Oh, okay. Would that be easier?
Actually, I think Liz's solution is pretty good. If you all agree with that, we would just change that before you sign it, that one little piece. So as amended, if that works for everyone.
Yep. Yeah. Great catch, Daniel.
Yep. And that's for A and for B, I guess.
Yes. A and B. Other questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll look to the public if there's anybody. This is the kind of stuff I love talking about, so I'll try not to talk very much. Seeing none, I don't see any Zoom either.
I would suggest that if we adopt it on the 189th day of April in the year 2232.
Oh, you want to get rid of the?
Oh, I see. Oh, they're stricken. I see. I couldn't see the little crosses.
Yep.
Okay. Never mind.
All right. Well, in that case, Oh, and I realize this is a perfect example of me not getting used to the new system. So I should have actually made a motion before we even really got into it. Because I did the presentation on it, I got a little lazy. So at this point, I would take a motion, board members. Daniel.
I move to approve the rules for conduct of meetings and hearings for 2023-2024.
Great. Is there any additional discussion? As amended.
As amended.
Was that your point?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to mention that.
Yes.
It's the 18th of April. It's Patriots Day.
It's a good day to adopt.
Good day to adopt rules.
Okay, great. Any others? Comments, board? Colorful insights?
Colorful? Yeah, but we don't have time for that.
Fair enough. All right, board.
Not too colorful.
Daniel has made a motion to approve the rules for conduct of meetings and hearings for 2023, 2024. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's going to carry 5-0. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to new business agenda item 9A, which is the bike walk action plan in possible endorsement of the plan. And I think I'm inviting multiple people up to the table, or maybe just Sue.
I'm going to be at the table, and then we have our two consultants, Emily and Holly, who are going to be on Zoom. But we have it organized, so you won't be whiplash.
Great. Holly, Emily, welcome to the select board meeting. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I was just able to unmute. Excellent. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us.
Great.
I think, we have a presentation. Are we able to?
I'm just going to bring that up.
Patrick is working on it right now.
Good.
Excellent. There it is.
I know. Yes,
thank you.
I moved over.
So I'm going to start. First, I do want to take a moment to introduce you to Holly Parker, who is the project manager from SLR, the consulting firm that we've been working with to put together this walk bike action plan, and Emily Foster, who is a transportation engineer with SLR. The planning department received a municipal planning grant in late 2021 for this project. And we competitively procured SLR to be the consultant to help us with this work. So what we're presenting to you tonight is the final action plan that was developed. Patrick, you can go ahead and advance it. Thank you. I'm going to go over the project timeline and vision, and then I'm going to turn it over to Emily and Holly, who will add some additional information. So I already made introductions. We also had Brandy Saxton, who is a planner with Place Sense, who also did some work on this project. And there was a steering committee that was guiding a lot of the work. And so I'll just run through some of the names. Kathleen White, Becky Jones, Brian Bannon, Dan Handy, Dan Tyler, David Mark Erickson, Eric Karen, Gary Stroud, Jamina Shupak, Jeff Nugent, Kevin O'Brien, Prudence McKinney, Robert Prohaska, and Stephen Hayes. So some of these were planning commission members, staff members. We thought it was really important for Public Works to be involved with this and have a voice. People who work in the community, some bicycle advocates. So this steering committee met about 3 or 4 times during the process to give us some feedback and guide the work. Next slide. So we started the project in June of 2022, and SLR was able to pull together a lot of background information. We had a project kickoff meeting, and one of the fun things we did is that the consultants and myself used the e-bikes from Brooks Memorial Library. It was great. I toured them around town. It's a great resource for those in the community that want to try out an e-bike. And I got to show them a couple of the areas that we already kind of knew were problematic. And then from July to August, SLR created a really great story map, an interactive tool where the community could drop concerns on a map or tell us what they wish they could see, drop safety concerns. And we collected a lot of information with that. We had some more meetings. We had a public meeting. And then the first public meeting was in September. They were well attended. They were primarily Zoom meetings still. And then in October and November, they started working on the prioritization plan of projects and documenting different implementation steps that we could take. And we had a second public meeting at the end of November as well that was equally well attended. And here we are in April. We had hoped to meet last month, but the weather didn't cooperate. So we're here tonight to give the final presentation. So I will just add that this is, as far as we could document in the planning department, it is the first walk bike action plan that the community has had. We have lots of pieces. Obviously we have a sidewalk network. We have some pieces of bike lanes that the state has put in. So we were really looking at how we could create connectivity and really serve the neighborhoods that, don't utilize cars to get around. So the report touches a little bit on our bus system and the ridership. We tried to focus on destinations where people might be traveling to, with an eye towards really our kind of more settled parts of town. So it's kind of the area that's kind of bounded by exit 2, by 91, and then going out to West Brattleboro Village. That was our main focus. There's lots of bikers and walkers in the community. We had to kind of figure out where the priority areas were going to be. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Emily. Or Holly, are you taking the next slide? I'm sorry.
Yep, Holly.
Thank you.
I'm on deck. Thanks, Sue. So the Walk Bike Action Plan team started with a draft vision statement that the steering committee helped customize, so it reflects Brattleboro's values and recognizes that biking and walking are legitimate transportation that must be safe and accessible for everyone. Next slide, please. And we had a good amount of engagement with the community. We created an interactive mapping tool on the project website. And as Sue was explaining, so participants were able to put points on an online map to show areas they wanted to see improved for walking or biking. And a comment could be supported or upvoted, as you see in the call out showing 22 votes for one comment about Putney Road north of the West River. So that we then mapped all of these comments in what's called a heat map. So we could hone in on the areas that really required specific focus and then mapped that against the existing infrastructure for bicyclists and pedestrians in Brattleboro. And in addition to the comments made using the online interactive mapping tool, comments that have been received through the town's safety action form were also reviewed by the project team and taken into consideration as the recommendations were crafted. I want to note that over 230 comments were received just on this through this interactive mapping tool on the project website. So really great feedback from the community, really a lot of good input that formed the basis for the project's recommendations. And if we can advance to the next slide, Emily is going to talk about existing and planned bicycle and pedestrian facilities that will start to weave together a network.
Thanks, Holly. So I first want to orient everyone to these maps. They might look a little funny, but just to make it fit on the wider screen, we did flip everything so that north is now to the right on your screen, just to make sure everyone's oriented. So the key to improving biking conditions in Brattleboro, like Sue and Holly both mentioned, is the development of a town-wide bicycle network. So the recommended bicycle facilities that we included in the action plan and that I'll run through in a little bit seek to complete that network. They are the essential first two steps in the creation of a safe, comfortable, and connected network that will support both existing bicyclists and help attract more people to use bicycles to get around town. So these are the existing bicycle facilities within Brattleboro. The bike lanes are shown in green, and the shared lane markings are shown in blue, and then multi-use trails shown in the yellow-green color. So there are bike lanes on portions of Western Avenue near West Brattleboro, a short section of bike lanes on Guilford Street, bike lanes on a section of Putney Road, and then shared lane markings on William Street, and then the West River Trail, which is a great multi-use resource. As shown on the map, none of these existing facilities really connect to one another. Next slide, please. Today, Brattleboro has a considerably robust pedestrian network, but there are some deficiencies. In these photos, you can see some of them, but the key to improving walking conditions in Brattleboro is by enhancing the pedestrian network that already exists and filling in the gaps. The recommended pedestrian facilities that we'll also go through tonight include crosswalk enhancements, intersection safety improvements, and then new sidewalk installments that were prioritized based on all those public comments that we received, and then also their safety benefit. So this is showing the existing pedestrian facilities within Brattleboro. And as shown, there are a range of facilities. There's some with wider sidewalks, other areas where there are no sidewalk and pedestrians are meant to travel on the shoulders, and then others where the sidewalk just abruptly ends. Next slide, please. VTrans and the town both have bicycle and pedestrian improvement projects pending. This is showing the upcoming bicycle projects, and they are shown in the dashed lines. So on Route 9, new bike lanes are proposed in West Brattleboro to connect the existing bike lanes to Sunset Lake Road. Additionally, new bike lanes are proposed between Allerton Avenue and Green Street. On Route 30, new bike lanes are proposed from West River Park to Park Place. And then with the proposed Putney Road improvements by VTrans, bike lanes will be provided from the existing roundabout to West River. Next slide, please. And these are the pending pedestrian projects. They include sidewalk improvements and some new sidewalk on Route 9, Green Street, and Clark Avenue. And those are shown in the thicker, brighter orange color. Next slide, please. So the envisioned short-term bicycle network includes mostly striping improvements that can be accomplished within the existing curb-to-curb roadway width to create quick, relatively low-cost, and a basic bicycle network throughout the town. So this image is layering on the existing facilities and then the upcoming improvement projects, and then now the proposed improvements, just to show how the network is starting to be developed. So in the short term, it is recommended to restripe Western Avenue to provide bike lanes where missing to create that continuous facility from West Brattleboro to downtown. Restripe Putney Road to provide bike lanes to connect the proposed VTrans improvements further along. Install signage and pavement markings on Springtree Road to provide wayfinding to the West River Trail. Install a multi-use trail across Brattleboro Common behind the gazebo to connect Putney Road and Linden Street. Next slide, please. It is also recommended to convert Flat Street to one-way eastbound between Elm Street and Main Street and restripe the roadway to provide two-way bicycle lanes. Traffic levels on Flat Street are pretty low, which offers the opportunity to dedicate more of the roadway to bicyclists. This is a simple depiction of what it could could look like near the transportation center. The conversion to one-way would also help to simplify movements at the intersection of Main Street and Flat Street, which could help some of the congestion and circulation issues that exist on Main Street. And part of this improvement, it is also recommended to install shared lane markings and traffic calming measures on Frost Street, Church Street, Elliott Street, and Elm Street to create a connected network of facilities around the downtown area. Just want to note that we know that shared lane markings are not a dedicated bicycle facility. However, they can be a positive and affordable solution when designed correctly. All these downtown streets that we show the shared lane markings on are relatively low speed and low volume. So the markings will just help to communicate to motorists that bicycles will be using the street and reinforce that drivers should adjust their behavior to share the road to bicyclists. Next slide, please. Given the constraints on Main Street within downtown, it is recommended to install shared lane markings on Main Street between High Street and Canal Street to, again, just remind motorists that bicycles do have a right to travel on the street. You could also possibly install bicycle boxes at the signalized intersections along Main Street. This depiction is showing the intersection of Main Street at Elliott Street. And the bike boxes are really meant to be a designated area at the head of an approach at a signalized intersection that provide bicyclists with a safe and visible way to get ahead of vehicles when the traffic light is red. So they help to just position bicycles if they're turning left to be ahead of cars. And they also can help prevent right hook conflicts with turning vehicles by, again, placing the bicycle ahead of the queuing vehicles. Next slide, please. It is also recommended to convert some of the on-street parking in the wide shoulders on South Main Street into two-way bicycle lanes, creating a continuous bicycle facility along South Main Street. And this is, again, just a simple depiction of what it could look like at the intersection of South Main Street and Oak Grove Avenue. Next slide, please. Okay, so that was the short-term bicycle network, and this is the short-term pedestrian network. The short-term pedestrian facilities include mostly intersection and crosswalk enhancements. Pedestrians are among the most vulnerable roadway users, especially at crossing locations. So using traffic calming devices and other safety countermeasures that aim at changing the behavior of both pedestrians and motorists and increasing the visibility and accessibility at pedestrian crossings can really help to encourage proper pedestrian use, lower vehicle speeds, and then also increase vehicle compliance with yielding to pedestrians in crosswalk and other things. It also, a lot of these improvements also benefit bicycles. Slowing vehicles does help for bicyclists, and some of the other traffic calming and safety measures only help bicyclists as well. So it is recommended to install intersection safety improvements at the intersections of Elliott Street at William Street, Elm Street at Frost Street, High Street at Green Street, Church Street at Elliott Street, South Main Street at Canal Street. And these intersections are all unsignalized intersections that really could use just some simple signing and striping enhancements to reduce some confusion and help reduce travel speeds and improve visibility and circulation for all roadway users, including bicycles and pedestrians. It is also recommended to install crosswalk visibility enhancements on Route 9 at Brookside Drive, George F. Miller Drive, and Greenleaf Street. These are shown in the orangey circles. These enhancements can include decorative or textured crosswalks, advanced markings and signings, curb extensions, and pedestrian refuge islands and lighting. And then finally, on Fairground Road and Atwood Street, it is recommended to install a sidewalk where missing to provide a continuous pedestrian pathway to the Brattleboro Union High School. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the longer term bicycle network. And again, it's layering everything on top. So you have the existing facilities and then the upcoming improvement projects and then all the short term improvements and then layered on the long term facilities to show what the connected network could look like. The longer term bicycle network is the second step in the creation of this network that I keep talking about. The proposed facilities will require a lot more planning and design, just the nature of the locations. So therefore, they haven't fully been determined yet. However, they are proposed to include continuous bicycle facilities on Canal Street, continuous bicycle facilities on Putney Road, bicycle facilities on Linden Street, and bicycle facilities on Fairground Road and High Street. And then a shared street on Bridge Street once the new bridge is in place. So this would be a lot like the Church Street Mall in Burlington, where priority is given to pedestrian and bicycle travel rather than vehicular travel. Next slide, please. So this is the long-term pedestrian facilities. And again, like with the bicycle facilities, more planning, design, and funding is required for these proposed improvements. But as part of the long-term improvements, it is recommended to install intersection safety improvements at the various intersections shown on Canal Street, as well as the intersection of Maple Street and Fairview Street. And then the longer-term pedestrian network also includes continuous pedestrian facilities on Canal Street, facilities on Putney Road, facilities on Linden Street, and then the installation of sidewalk we're missing on Belmont Avenue, on the installation of sidewalk on Cedar Street from Laurel Street to Linden Street, and then sidewalk on Black Mountain Road from Putney Road to Buttonwood Hill Road. So I know I just talked about a lot of information, but yeah, as just to reiterate again, these longer term improvements are recommended to link all the existing, upcoming, and proposed short-term facilities together to create that web of walking and biking possibilities. So I guess it'd be a good time to pause to see if anyone had questions before Holly continues.
Yeah, any initial questions? Like, let's keep the full discussion till after the presentation is over, but is there any clarifying questions now? Okay. Let's keep moving then.
Okay, great. Could we have the next slide, please? So this slide just shows basically what we've shared on the previous maps, but in list form, and in this case to call out the projects shown in blue that could be, particularly inexpensively and efficiently completed when a road is already planned for repaving. So this intel comes from Public Works, which is now working very closely with planning services so that planning is aware of what is getting repaved in a given year and can take that into account when that repaving work is done and there's now paint that goes back down on the street. Perhaps crosswalk could be added or shared lane markings or bike lane. So just, these are opportunities to help get some of those projects done quickly and efficiently and in a coordinated manner. In orange, we're showing some of the projects that are already underway, some conceptual design at High Street and Green Street and at South Main and Canal Street. So we've got a little bit of momentum going already. Next slide, please. Similarly, this slide shows in list form the longer term bicycle, pedestrian, and intersection safety improvements, the plan recommended, just to kind of give you a sense of the volume of recommendations. But this is maybe a good time to remind you that all of this information is in the report, which is posted on the Town of Brattleboro's website. So please do take a look at the full report if you'd like to spend more time reviewing the maps or recommendations. Next slide, please. So our team looked at policies and programs that could improve bicycling and walking in Brattleboro, and identified, as mentioned, the fact that this close coordination between the town's planning services and public works could hasten implementation of short-term projects. But similarly, VTrans posts information about the state roads they intend to pave in the next year or two, providing another opportunity for coordination that results in implementation of projects that can be accomplished with a minimal amount of design and planning, mostly paint. Next, actually, let's stay on. Sorry, could we go back? Got ahead of myself. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So we also suggest that a fund could be built within the town's budget to match grant funds to pay for bicycle and pedestrian projects, and also that partnership with agencies or institutions may help create cost-saving opportunities, such as, for example, working with the Southeast Vermont Transit to purchase and install bus shelters. We, in terms of programs, Brattleboro has this really nice amenity, as Sue mentioned at the beginning, of its e-bike lending library at Brooks Memorial Library. We had so much fun on those bikes, and we did, I think, 6 miles through Brattleboro without breaking a sweat, even going up the very steep hills. So it's a fun and no cost way for people to try biking around town. And other programs that could combine with the e-bike option include creating one or more planned and signed bike routes through town, as you'll see on the next slide. Group bike rides or walking tours could take people on these routes to become familiar with them, and can include stops for coffee, ice cream, beer. And the town could also consider some of the feedback it received from the League of American Bicyclists on their bicycle-friendly community application, as well as reapplying for bicycle-friendly community status. And finally, Go Vermont supports anyone in the state with their travel options, including most recently the ability to track the mover bus in real time through a smartphone app. So just making that information more prominent on the town's website and through social media can really spread that resource to those who want to know their transportation options. And the slide here is, it's just an example. Please don't look at it too closely. It's based on some feedback we got about a way to avoid parts of Route 9 coming into, I'm sorry, not Route 9.
Putney Road.
Putney Road, thank you. I wanted to say Prospect, but it's still a P. It's a P road. So taking, going off Putney Road, cutting through the Commons, getting into downtown, and then staying off Main Street to come back is a way, if you're coming in from the north, to get into downtown to grocery shop or to get to other destinations in downtown Brattleboro. So this is just an example. This was a quick scribble, but it was meant to illustrate that just with simple signage and some lines on a map and maybe a website that has these maps formalized can be a way to start building a sort of bicycle culture, taking people out on these routes for group rides to familiarize them, and just making it a little more fun and a little more convenient to bike around with some guidance. Next slide, please. So the final report includes examples of bicycle and pedestrian accommodation and other traffic calming methods that are maybe less conventional, but possibly also more implementable in Brattleboro. the majority of the examples we show here are in Vermont, a lot of them in Burlington, but just to kind of keep ideas flowing and keep options top of mind for what might work on different roadways. Next slide, please. The good folks at BCAT reminded us to establish a baseline of bicycle and pedestrian facilities in Brattleboro. So thank you all very much for that. So the progress could be measured as the facilities expand. We also noted in the report the most recent travel mode data for Brattleboro, which should be updated annually as census data is available, to determine if the improvements in bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure are starting to change people's transportation preferences. Next slide, please. This slide is a reminder that all of these improvements to bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure have a cost associated with them. We took a deep dive at the beginning of the project to see what the town had in its budget for things like bike lanes and sidewalks, and found that the budget in the last fiscal year wasn't enough to repair the quarter-mile stretch of South Main Street, and significantly less was budgeted for this year. So the funds budgeted for funds budgeted for bicycle improvements in the town's budget will cover less than a mile of bike lane. So the good news, however, is that there are a lot of sources of grant funding. Next slide, please. So this is not an exhaustive list, but it shows some notable funding sources Brattleboro could and has tapped for bicycle and pedestrian projects. There is as much as $600,000 potentially available, either for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure through the ARPA funds that remain, that haven't been allocated to another project yet, or perhaps those funds could be used as a seed again for matching grant funding. There's usually at least a 20% match required by the town to get access to these greater fund pools. And great news is that the Better Connections grant that Sue applied for earlier, I guess in February, Brattleboro did win that grant. I don't know if you wanted to chime in and say something about that, Sue.
Yeah, I'll just say it hasn't come before the select board yet because we're still waiting on the fine details of it. But we were awarded, I believe it's going to be in the $90,000 range because it's also going to include a stormwater component to it. But that is looking at Canal Street, which if you could see from the maps, that's really a hot spot where we have sidewalk, but there's really unsafe intersections. It is a planning study, but with that planning study, we'll have conceptual designs that we can then go for maybe one of the larger federal or state grants. So I expect at some point in May, early June, it'll be before the select board for acceptance, and then we'll start working on that. We're pretty excited about that because Canal Street needs a lot of attention.
Excellent.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yeah, we also were just thinking about bonding, how, maybe if there were a bond, it could also serve as seed money for grant funding. So we just gave a few examples, looking at, I think this was the bond rates as of November of last year. So that it's probably a moving target, but it just is one point of data to consider. And we have one more slide. Good. Advance to the next slide. This is the good news that there is progress being made. We've already discussed most of these things. But so if anyone does want to comment on, we should give Sue, I think, a big round of applause because She's really made a lot of this happen. She took what Emily and I were talking about and proposing, and she put pen to paper, and she's really been an amazing implementer of the vision. So I give you a big hand, Sue. Are there any questions or comments? We're happy to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the presentation. Board, I would take a motion to start the discussion off.
Motion.
Yep. So it would be helpful for in the administrative report, there is a motion. All right.
I motion to endorse the 2023 Walk Bike Action Plan as a guide for future planning, policy development, and potential regulatory and programmatic and implementation measures. I stumbled on it.
Whole year.
I got it done.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So Peter has made a motion. Board members, questions, comments, discussion on an excellent presentation. Liz.
Thank you, Ian. I want to thank you all for this excellent plan that we've all been waiting for. It's both comprehensive and creative. I want to mention a couple of things that I noted in reading of the plan. First, I think we need to recognize that the Melrose Bridge is a key element for bike safety and access, and it's a very expensive item that both VTrans and the town of Brattleboro is paying for. So that's something that we all need to appreciate. I note the equity lens that this report used to create their findings. It's not just sustainable, et cetera, but there's an equity basis. I note the many public comments, and many of those comments were not only insightful, but they were listened to in the report, and they're also part of the daily traffic implementation plan or the traffic safety committee. I can't stress enough that we should be using the good paint, because apparently if you don't use the good paint, you have to repaint more often. I also applaud Public Works and Planning Department's collaboration. I see that often, and it's a wonderful thing. I support the town budget for grant matching. I also support the efforts for programmatic efforts to change people's habits and public outreach aligned with that. And I hope that it can be made to include buses, because I think buses are an important part of pedestrian and bicycle and public transportation safety and continued sustainability. I have one issue, and that is that we need to carefully plan any changes on Flat Street, because the Flat Street area is very delicately used at this present time, and we need to really look carefully at any changes and what the repercussions might be. Thank you again very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Liz. Other board members? Questions, comments?
I mean, for me, you had me at bike work action plan, because I as an avid cyclist, I can tell you that when I get out on the Putney Road and I hit some of those bike lanes, it's the one time that if I'm heading north towards Putney that I actually feel like I'm going to survive that stretch of road. So, and then when you get north of the roundabout, you're back into Mad Max land, and anything can happen. And it is a noticeable difference as somebody who uses what little bit of a network we have. So I'm really excited to see that this thing is coming before us tonight, and hats off to everybody who worked on this. It's a really great and comprehensive plan, and I'm looking forward to this being rolled out. So thank you all for putting the effort in that you did on this. I applaud you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Is that 3 rounds of applause in a night? Other board members wish to speak to Daniel?
Yeah. I gratefully received this plan and I appreciate all the work that went into it. And I just hope that as we move through the next couple of budget cycles, that we actually support the goals of this plan in our budget actions.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Daniel. Franz?
So one thing that strikes me in particular is the amount of community input that you managed to gather together here. And I sort of couple that mentally with the fact that a lot of this is very long-term planning and is going to be dependent on fundraising through various sources to a great extent. And sort of drawing those ideas together, I wonder whether there are already organizations or structures in the community where clearly there's a lot of advocacy, but is there any kind of organized effort looking forward that'll kind of be sustaining the will of people like us who have to make budgetary decisions going into the future? You know, I can see where all this looks great, feels great, has a good solid basis to it, but it's still going to have to be relitigated year after year after year in the budget process. And I'm wondering how much support from the community there will be to help make sure that that's the direction that we go in.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, right now we have the Brattleboro Coalition for Active Transportation, BCAT, who has been, excellent advocates for this work in town. I mean, I think one of the genesis of this project was their constant advocacy and just realizing it was time. So they're really passionate. They have worked to increase some of the budget line items, either working with the town manager's office or Public Works. They've identified grant opportunities. And then they do a lot of the programmatic stuff as well, or have been doing. So I think BCAT's pretty sustainable at this time. I'm not sure. I think that there are members of BCAT here in the audience. I think they're probably our biggest partner right now in the work. When I say ours, I mean the towns.
Well, if there are any members of BCAT or other organizations who want to come to the library tomorrow,
nobody clapped.
Everybody's on my payroll.
Thank you very much, Franz.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll just take one moment. Holly, Emily, Sue, thank you very much for the presentation and for your and everyone else's work in putting this project into motion. Yeah, it's very exciting. I'm really glad that we have members of the public here to sort of participate in this moment. And I do really echo the appreciation of my fellow board members, and also the fact that this is just a start and that we do need to see this reflected in our future budgets. And so I have just 2 points, starting with that one. I'd like to just encourage that the town manager that we look at this on our June 3rd meeting, that this plan and other plans adopted by the select board in years past are considered when we're looking at goals in the FY25 budget, and that we can make real steps towards implementing this plan, should the board adopt it tonight, that are reflected in the FY25 budget. And then my only other point is I participated in the community outreach for this because I am a avid runner and also a walking commuter for my job every day. And I was so impressed with the quality of the setup for how I could interact with it. And I would really encourage both, I would commend you all for that. And then also just encourage our staff to continue that work when we're doing other community outreach. It gives us, it's a really good way that the public gets to interact with the municipal government. Plus their voices are heard in a much better way than more static ways that we do outreach in the past.
Thanks. Yeah, it was excellent. And, we did recognize that an online mapping tool was not going to be available to everybody. We had paper versions of the map at the senior center. at Groundworks. They weren't super effective. I think next time we'd tweak that a little bit and maybe have office hours because people weren't just marking up the maps. We had one in our department as well. So, we have things to work on, but definitely having an online map, people really responded to that.
Yeah, that's a good reminder that there are always ways to improve. Any other comments from the board before I open up to public? Seeing none, I'll look to the room first. If anyone wishes to speak on the item. Oh, just introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Cynthia Parker Houghton. I've got a bike. I've been being a bike commuter for 6 years, gone 7,000 miles, and it's my belief there was a question about advocacy and financial support for this. I really believe that this is sort of an addictive thing. People are going to want it as it becomes more available. There's going to be a larger community supporting it, is my belief.
Great. Thank you very much, Cynthia. I'm going to go to Zoom first. See if there's any hands there. Seeing none, look to the room.
Arthur Davis. I as someone who recently in the last couple of years actually has replaced a car with a bike, and I commute every day. I'd like to see more people do that, and actually have fewer cars in town. And I think that this is like a good goal, a good way to start that process of making cars not necessarily the preferred or most kind of efficient and have the most advantageous way of getting yourself around town, because it's there's a lot of other benefits as we all know. So thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Arthur. I see a hand on Zoom. Yep.
Hi, my name is Joellen Torallo, and I'm a long-term citizen of Vermont and member of the Brattleboro community. I just want to thank those who participated in this, both at the grassroots community level and the governmental cross-sector nonprofit level, for approaching this in such a participatory way and bringing together such a mass of best practices to inform our local plan. I just want to speak very strongly to the benefits I perceive for this plan to public health, which I think in the long run, the short run and the long run have large potential returns on both the public health and public safety for people of all ages in our community, whether it be children, youth, adults, and seniors. And as we're thinking about and celebrating Brattleboro being a strong community with community resilience, these are the kinds of initiatives that I think make us a strong town and a unique town, especially when you can leverage so many resources for the return on investments that I think we'll get. So thank you all, and thank you to the board for being positive in your reception of the plan.
Great. Thank you very much. Anyone else from the room?
My name is Dave Cohen, and unfortunately, while this whole thing was going on, I was living abroad in Portland, Maine.
Welcome back.
Yeah, and now I'm back. So I'm a member of BCAT. Also, I'm a consultant with Go Vermont. I provide free consultations for Vermonters around electric assist bikes, cargo bikes, all kinds of ways for people to commute. And so one thing that the plan kind of left out a little bit is when we talk about bikes, when, often the image is just somebody with a bike, maybe a rack, and they can carry, panniers, some bags. But a lot of people are running cargo bikes. That was one of the things that I was working on and I continue to work on, is getting people onto larger bikes so they can carry their children, carry all the groceries, do all the errands that you normally would do by car. So the other thing about the electric bike, it's allowing now people, the seniors, people with mobility issues now to ride. So we're going to see a greater proportion, a greater diversity of people riding because of the advantages of e-bikes. And there's an e-bike boom. It's happening in Vermont. We've got some great projects. I actually helped start the lending library. I've brought back a fleet of cargo bikes that could be allowing people to try out. So there's all kinds of opportunities. And like Daniel said, and I think Ian, you mentioned it, we really got to commit to the funding for this year in and year out, because there's all these long-term projects and visions for something that's really connective and wholesome and healthy for our community.
Great. Thank you very much. And I see another hand. I'm just going to give just a couple more minutes. So we have final comments. Oh, the hand go down.
No, it's there.
Hi there. My name is Rachel Zamor, and I too just returned from Portland, Maine. Not a coincidence, but delighted to be back in Brattleboro, and so excited to hear this presentation and to have had a chance to look over the report. I briefly was on the Planning Commission for a little while, which was a great privilege, and am somebody who commutes on foot and by bike. And we moved here 15 years ago specifically because we wanted someplace we could walk and bike everywhere we needed to get to on a daily basis, but still get easily out into nature. That was part of what drew us to Brattleboro. That and some ancient bike plan that was never actually funded, that we were misled to believe was actually a plan that was happening. But that was a long time ago. But it does bring me to one of the things that I wanted to say about this, which is that I just really hope that we can put our money where our mouth is on this one. This is really, really important. And it's not only important for environmental reasons and to make Brattleboro more livable, but it also, being a more walkable, bikeable place, is essential for attracting young people to this community. And we need to be doing that. We need to be kind of bringing Brattleboro up into sort of the modern age. And I'm just really excited about this. Beautiful job on all of this, Sue and the consultants, everybody. This is fantastic. I'm excited, and I really hope we can see it through and really fund it and make it happen. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rachel. All right, board. We have one more.
Hi, I'm Norm Skorstad. Been using bike for transportation for about 30 years here in Brattleboro, and before that it was in the Burlington area. So I've seen the changes in Burlington and how many more people are using bicycles to get around town because of all the changes that have been made. And one of the things that I've been asked by many people, I'd say, I bike to work, I bike to run errands and so on. They'll ask me, so it's kind of unsafe, and I say, yeah, and I love to bike, and so I do what I need to do to be as safe as possible. So what I'm kind of getting at is, I think a lot more people would bike if they felt safer being on the roads. And I think that's the bottom line here, really. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. So we've got a pending motion, board. Are there any other questions or discussion comments?
I will just make the comment and to echo what a couple of you have said, and I do believe that what this plan professes to do is make it a safer thing to happen. And once that's established, because the number one thing I hear about road biking specifically is that people don't do it because they don't feel safe. And I think this brings safety to the table. And I think you will see an increased amount of people out on the road, which is, I think, a plus.
Absolutely. Well, board, Peter has made a motion to endorse the 2023 Walk Bike Action Plan as a guide for future planning, policy development, and potential regulatory and programmatic implementation measures. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's going to carry 5-0. Thank you so much and congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
Great. So we're going to move on to new business agenda item 9B, which is the financial report. Board, this is our first financial report as this select board, as a 2023-2024 Brattleboro Select Board, I believe. Is that correct? So I just want to take a moment before I pass it over to town staff. This is sometimes something, I looked at this side of the room, where the select board, it used to not really be something that came before us as an agenda item that we would approve. And then there was a decision made about a year, maybe 2 years ago, that we would actually have it as an agenda item. I think that I'm happy to continue. Am I wrong in that?
A little bit, yeah.
Is it longer?
It did used to just be part of the agenda, and then it went on consent for a while, and then it came back.
Then it was pulled from.
So it used to be. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that might actually have been before I was on the board.
Yeah.
Okay. So while
there was a time.
There was a time. So then we're back to what it was
pre-Ian.
Yeah. So it's so we're back to what it was prior, when it used to just be an item that we could discuss, which was a decision made by a board 2 boards ago.
Yeah, it was part of the whole, what do we put in the consent agenda?
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm happy to continue not having it on the consent agenda and having it as just a discussion item if the rest of the board feels that way.
Yeah, I think it's a good check-in
okay.
every month, leading to the budget conversation.
Yeah.
I think if the agenda setting committee wishes to try and put it on the consent agenda, they can see whether that flies.
Yeah, agreed.
I would say, don't bother.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to mention it because it's a new select board. So, but with that, my understanding is Kim Frost is not here today. So the financial report will be discussed briefly by John.
Yes. And I will hopefully have some help if needs be, but and also because Kim Frost couldn't be here tonight, if you do have some more in-depth questions, I'd be happy to research them and come back or email you or let you know whatever responses might help you. So the report is on page 157 of your packet, and Kim put this together, and what we have learned is that with 75% of the fiscal year complete, in the general fund, expenditures are at 77.4%, but when we prorate that based on things that are paid earlier in the year, we find that the general fund expenditures are at 72.8% of the annual budget, which is pretty much on target. The utilities fund, likewise, when we look at the prorated expenditures for the utilities fund, is also at 72.8% of the annual budget for that fund. And the parking fund is at 77.3% of the annual budget, so a little bit high with respect to the amount of the fiscal year that's been completed. The full report and expenditures are in your packet, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you have or put together that information for you at a later time.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Yeah. So board, I'll take a motion to get it started.
Sure.
Is it a pre-written one?
Yes.
I move to accept the financial report as presented.
Thank you very much, Liz. Board members, questions, comments on the financial report? No?
Letting you off easy, John.
Maybe it should have gone on consent.
Oh my Lord. Okay. Any questions or comments from the public? I see one. Dick?
Yes. The comment about consent agenda. The reason this is
I'm actually gonna interrupt you, Dick. We're talking about the financial report. So,
and this is about the financial report. This is a comment you just made about taking the financials and possibly putting it in as a consent agenda item. And I was just going to give you a little history as to say the town had a shortfall many, many years ago, and the board decided to do a monthly financial report to give the public confidence that the finances were being overseen by the board. So I would strongly encourage you to keep this as an agenda item.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I think that's where we landed. Okay. Any other? Okay. In that case, board, Liz has made a motion to accept the financial report as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. It's going to carry 5-0. All right. Why don't we, yeah. Want to take the break now? Yeah. So we're going to take our break a little early tonight. And let's try to get back right around 8 o'clock. So we'll just recess for about 6 minutes. Thank you.
You're keeping to this.
All right. So we're going to reconvene. It's 8:01. We're going to move on to new business agenda item 9C, which is our EMS update. I'm going to invite up to the table AC Kier and Chief Howard. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. And I think I will just hand it right on over to you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We just completed our 9th month at the end of March with EMS, and during the month of March, we did 346 calls for service, 213 calls required response with an ambulance. As we continue to adjust what information is gathered, we continue to monitor the 90th percentile time of EMS emergent responses, which is calls, justifying lights and sirens. We've broken those numbers down below. Total EMS calls for the 9 months so far is 2,279. The average time of a call is 28 minutes and 8 seconds. The need for 2 ambulances has been 359 times. The need for 3 ambulances has been 46 times. The need for mutual aid has been twice. Transported patients is 1,569. Average response time is 4 minutes and 36 seconds. The EMS emergency response time, 90th percentile, is 7 minutes and 21 seconds. There is a chart there that breaks down what types of calls we went on for the month of March. The month of March has been our slowest month for EMS response. But as of today, if we keep going the way we are in April is going to be our busiest month that we ever had. I asked Golden Cross for their payer mix, which I included, as well as their collection rate. And with that, just so folks know when they see these things, we're doing everything we can to be completely transparent with all this information. We're gathering all this data, and I'm certain that it's confusing you as much as it confuses us, but we're all learning together. We're all working well together. And the end goal is to be transparent. And from now until September, we will keep providing you information to help you make the proper decision come September. Couple of training notes that I want you folks to be aware of. As you all know, every month we train with Dr. Storn, our EMS doctor. And coming up next week sometime, we're going to be doing airway training with Dr. Storn, and we're actually we've been able to get some pig tracheas with lungs attached, and we're going to do some airway stuff so people can actually get hands-on with an airway and have that type of training. So we're excited about that, as well as we have Northeast Emergency Training Solutions coming to do a course. The course is pre-hospital emergency, pre-hospital provider training. That's an 8-hour course that staff will be attending as well. I will open it up to questions that you folks may have.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chief Howard. Board, I take a motion to get us started. Franz?
I'd like to move to approve the report, the EMS report from the Brattleboro Fire Department.
Excellent. Franz has made a motion. Board members, questions, comments?
I have questions and comments.
Excellent.
Questions. When are these training courses going to be?
Next week. We're still waiting to get the Dr. Storm to get us a day, but it's looking to be next week, and I can let you know when that is. The other course that I talked about is going to be Friday, August 4th.
Okay. I mean, I'd be very interested in stopping in to see what's going on.
Well, certainly.
Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, what percentage of the medical calls that require a response actually are lights and sirens calls? Do you have those numbers?
I don't think we have that. We don't have those actual numbers, but the actual 60%. I'll get you an answer. It's I'm going to say it's 50-50 right off my head.
So, and that call is made by dispatch as to what level of response is needed?
It's made by the crew that's responding.
Okay.
They take the information from the dispatcher and say, if Lenny Howard calls and says, I twisted my ankle and I'm laying in the grass, they're most likely going to make
it's a next day call?
Yeah, they're most likely going to go with the flow of traffic.
Right.
If Lenny Howard calls and says, I'm having difficulty breathing, chest pain, they're going to go license.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'd be curious about the percentages. Yep. The other thing is that you've got the invoiced total money figure of $758,000, and then you've got credits of $456,000. Mm-hmm. And then down below, you say there's a collection rate of 77.5%, but that doesn't seem to be the same percentage. So I don't know exactly what goes into those calculations.
Good question. I knew you were going to ask it. So this evening I had Dale Gerard from Golden Cross is on Zoom, and he can certainly answer those questions.
Well,
great.
Excellent.
Dale, welcome.
Muted.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So the question as far as the collection percentage, there's a couple different ways of looking at collection percentage. You can either go with your gross charges, what you're looking at, minus the payments, which is kind of a very fictitious number, or you can do it the way generally we do it in the industry, which is take your charges minus your contractual allowances, which your contractual allowances are like if you're dealing with Medicare, Medicaid, they have a certain allowance figure that they allow for. So anything above that is an automatic write-off because you're required under federal rules to accept the contractual allowance. So when you take the contractual allowance away from the total charges and then divide it by the payments, that's how you come up with your 77%.
So, and does that explain the difference in those numbers so that the invoiced amount would not be the corrected Medicare charges, but it would be the higher number that you can't actually get your hands on?
Correct. That's the gross charges from the day that we put the bill out. Everybody is billed at the exact same amounts. And then depending on your insurance, your Medicare, your Medicaid, you may end up with a lower figure based upon your contracts that you have with these folks.
And so the net effect of that really depends on your payer mix.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And is it set up that way for just a better transparency?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand what I'm asking either, so it's okay. What I'm trying to figure out is why that. So everybody gets billed the same across the board, and what you get paid is different. Correct?
That is correct.
All right.
Thank you very much, Dale. Other questions or comments, board members? Looking up to, yes, Liz.
I just want to mention that when my brother was a toddler, he choked on a marshmallow and they called the fire department. And as he was turning blue, the fireman reached his finger down, grabbed the marshmallow, and he's alive and well today. So I think your training is very important.
Thank you. Oh, it's the first time we've found that anecdote.
All right.
Daniel, thank you.
I'm actually really grateful that Dale is here. And if Dale is still available, I'd be curious to know what Golden Cross charges for their calls. You know, so we have like an ALS call and a BLS call, and I'm sure there's a little more variation than that. But if you could sort of give us that sort of top line number, that would be helpful.
I apologize. I don't have that with me this evening. Again, if you take a look at the total chart, I would absolutely be happy to share that with you. If you look at the total number of calls that we're billing out in a month and divide it out, there's a certain percentage that has mileage, but most of it is just your BLS, ALS, which again, I think we're running at about a 60-40%, if I remember correctly. The chief has the numbers in front of me. I didn't bring anything home with me, so I apologize for not having the correct information for you.
Okay. I would just note, just as we continue to improve this report or modify it to, reflect as much data as possible and be as transparent as possible, I just want to confirm for myself, all of the numbers after the all the numbers in sort of the bottom third of the page here on our memo are reflective of the entire 9 months, correct?
Player mix.
Everything. So,
yes,
so for example, need for mutual aid, that's for mutual aid, not in the month of March.
July 1st till the end of March.
And the 80th percentiles and 90th percentiles, all of those are calculated from the full 9 month period, not from the 1 month period. Okay. Thank you. John.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. I just wanted to respond a little bit to Daniel's question and just to let the board know that all of that type of information will be part of the analysis that we're doing over the course of the summer, and we'll be bringing a thorough accounting of that to you as we start to figure out what the various models are that the board may want to consider moving forward.
Okay, I'm going to pass it over to any member of the public who wishes to speak. I don't see any hand in the room. I see Dick, his hand up in Zoom. Welcome back, Dick.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Daniel and Franz asked the questions that I was going to ask, but I do have a concern about the delta of what was billed. That's 758, 570, 88, versus what is outstanding, which is $302,371.95. Now you can have a collection rate of 77%. I mean, I did the percentage rate of before I had heard Dale's response. My collection rate was at 60.6, I think, percent, which probably several of you got that. But I am concerned about that large number that is uncollected yet, and wanted to get anybody's thoughts on if there's a concern there.
Great, thank you very much. Daniel?
Oh, I think Chief Howard was.
Oh, Chief, yeah.
But my peanut gallery was one.
Of course.
I hear Dick's concern, and collection rates is a tricky thing, because, as you know, the AP Triton study suggested that we charge $1,400 per call. And as Dale stated a few minutes ago, we know Medicare, Medicaid, we're only going to get a certain percentage of that money. When we bill like a private insurance company, you get most of that $1,400. So with AP Triton's prediction, they had us at a 38% collection rate at that price, which in turn, and I'm it was $936,000 something that they predicted we would collect. That would be our 38%. Versus what Dale's charging and what he's telling you he's getting for a collection rate. His is at 77. And he told me today that after a year or so, he sees that his collection rate being between 80 to 82%. Again, I talked to Springfield, Vermont. They charge a different fee. So their collection rate is say 70%. Then I call and talk to the fire chief in Hartford. They charge a little more than Springfield. So their collection rate is a little lower. So it all goes on what we charge. And again, I will refer to the AP Triton study. They predicted ours at 38% with that $900 and something $1,000 would be collected. And as Rich stated in both of his presentations, their numbers are very conservative. So that's where I'll leave it at collection.
Great, thank you, Chief. Just let John speak to Daniel for a moment.
If I could just add one thing to that, Chief. So one thing also to keep in mind here is that there's a lag in the credits that come in. So there of course was no billing here. That's no invoices that was done in the fourth quarter of fiscal 22. So some of these that have been invoiced will be credited over the course of the next quarter or so, and will continue to increase this amount. So that some of that $300,000 gap that was referred to will ultimately be paid. So.
Great. Thank you, John. Daniel?
Thanks. I just want to kind of say that Dick's question is reasonable to an extent, and it's also, so Dick is having a concern about the amount of money that Golden Cross have received. If that was money that the town of Brattleboro was receiving, I would also be concerned. But it's not, right? These are, payments that have been made for people that have received ambulance services in the town of Brattleboro to Golden Cross, who we contract with to provide ambulance services. So like, as has been stated in maybe a different way, let me be a little more direct. So, in the next several months, there will be continual study of EMS options, all of which will happen sort of at the staff level and then come to this space where we'll be investigating things like revenue projections, costs, and then, hopefully at some point we will have enough information in front of us to be able to make the best decision for the town. But in terms of like concern about revenue received by Golden Cross today, I'm not too worried about it.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I see a hand in the public.
Hi, I'm Mary Diane Baker. I live in Brattleboro. I wanted to say in support of our fire department and Golden Cross, my 90-year-old mother lives with us now, and we were in need of services in March and wanted to say that excellent care from both the fire department, from Golden Cross, which was not a surprise. I high-fived them on their training, which is not a surprise. And Mom paid her bill to Golden Cross, after Medicare. I feel very cared for and secure in this town with what these guys are up to these days.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Last bit, which was part of the impact. I was a paramedic long ago and far away. So I've got that little bit of background to know what it takes to make these things happen also. And
thank you.
I support them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Dick, I see your hand. Do you want to just keep it brief, especially if it's responsive to Daniel?
Just as a quick follow-up, the percentage can be 80%. This is about the dollars you come in. And, the concern I had when I looked at the pie chart is when you look at private insurance, which is roughly 12% of the mix. So it's not about percentages. It's about dollars coming in. And when you have fixed rates by Medicare, Medicaid, that's a concern that I have. So it doesn't make any difference if you bill $1,400, $1,500. They're only going to pay you a certain amount of money. Now, Golden Cross has been generous as to not bill the delta between what they bill out and what they receive from patients, whether it's private insurance or Medicare or Medicaid. And so that's a concern that I have. And for the last speaker, I don't think anybody has ever questioned the quality of care by Brett, Fire, Golden Cross, and for that matter, Rescue. So my concern here is mainly financial, because this has a potential to have a huge impact on the taxpayers of Brattleboro. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Dick. Okay, board. So there's a pending motion. Any other final questions or comments? Seeing none, Franz has made a motion to, oh, I guess there was no motion required, but we made one anyways. We're going to accept the EMS update as presented. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
He's not up for the next one.
Okay, so we're going to move on to new business agenda item 9D, which is the Golden Cross contract potential approval of extension. I'm going to hand this over to John.
Yep. Great. Thank you. So in April of last year, the town executed a contract with the Golden Cross Ambulance Service for fiscal 23. And in June, that contract was amended to provide a third ambulance and some additional services at an additional cost of $50,000 for a total annual cost of $125,000. The partnership with Golden Cross has been very positive and productive, as you heard testimony for earlier. The quality of the medical services has also been excellent from what we have seen, and also Dale Gerard and Golden Cross has shared a great deal of information and data with the town that is helping us understand the potential for models of service delivery moving forward. On March 21st of this year, the Selectboard asked the administration to pursue parallel tracks of information gathering about a potential dedicated EMS service, a potential regional EMS service, and a potential in-house municipal EMS service. We are in the process of doing that, and I hope to bring you a plan for how we're doing that from now into September at an upcoming board meeting. And that doing that plan requires us to have some sort of continued coverage. And so what we are doing tonight is to ask whether you would extend the current contract with Golden Cross to carry us through the transition period until a decision is made and we are able to put our new model into place the start of fiscal 25. So so what we have is a red line, so the contract that was included in your memo after page 187, we discovered was the wrong draft, somehow got incorporated into the packet. So what we have done is put together a red line against the current contract and a clean copy, which is before each of you in the board. And there's also some copies for the public up there. And we will get this up on the website as well. This red line shows where the proposed changes are that we would execute through this extension. They're primarily update of the dates in the contract, incorporating the price from the addendums that I mentioned earlier into the contract it's entire. And then also the only other significant change is addition of a standard notification requirement, which had been the practice, but just had never been described in the previous contract. So that is it. We hope that you would consider extending this contract to allow us to go through this period of discovery and analysis to make a recommendation for the long-term solution that we hope to transition the town to by July 1st of next year.
Great.
So
thank you very much, John. Board, I'll take a motion. Franz.
I move that we authorize the town manager to execute a 1-year contract extension for emergency medical services with Golden Cross Ambulance Service Incorporated of Claremont, New Hampshire.
Franz has made a motion. Board. Discussion? Liz.
I am supporting this motion. It allows the town to continue having ambulance service while we decide the long-term solution.
The board members?
Yes, that's what I think too.
Franz echoes Liz. Excellent. I will just say that I'm grateful that we have a partner with Golden Cross who we feel confident in extending a contract with to help us through this transition. I would actually just interrogate Chief Howard for a moment if he feels comfortable. Does the fire department support the idea of continuing this contract for another year and working with Golden Cross in the way that you have been for the last year?
We do. It's been a good working relationship, and we look to continue that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I thank Dale for all the work that he's done with us as we've learned together and setting up this system last year, and for the transparency in the data that's helping us make a decision in September for what EMS is going to look like in Brattleboro in the future. So I also am in favor of the motion. Absent any other, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the public to speak?
Yeah.
Yep.
I just wanted to
Just wait until you get to the mic so that we can pick you up on the.
Okay, I just want to say that this idea is like 40 years old, to make Brattleboro independent within itself. And I really believe this is the best way to go about doing it, even if it takes 3 or 4 years. But to let Brattleboro be independent.
Thank you very much, Dale. Any other? No hands on Zoom either. Well, board. There is a motion. Franz has made a motion to authorize the town manager to execute a 1-year contract extension with for emergency medical services with Golden Cross Ambulance Services Incorporated of Claremont, New Hampshire. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's going to carry 5-0. Thank you very much. We will move on to new business agenda item 9E, which is the FY24 General Fund Budget After Action Review. I'm handed over to John.
Yes, thank you, Ian. So an administrative best practice is to look back on major actions and review them with an eye to making improvements in the future. And the town spent a good deal of effort from the period from August 2022 to March 2023 on building the fiscal 24 budget and ultimately successfully getting it approved at RTM. So we met with the staff to review how that process went, and a description of what we did is in your packet, starting on page 192. There were several observations that the staff had that they just wanted to let you know about. And the first was that we've continued to rely on spreadsheets and antiquated financial software to put together this budget every year. It has worked, and we got a good approved budget done through this, and that has been at relatively low cost, although we haven't done an analysis of whether moving some of the staff time that is put into doing it in a more manual process could be reduced and therefore put onto other important work if it was supported by a better financial software. We could look into that, but generally we feel like there are a lot of products out there these days that could really help us put together a much more robust budget and look at scenarios more easily and help with questions that the select board and the public may have about how, if you do things this way, how does it look? And if you do things a different way, how does it look? So that was one observation. We're not making a recommendation tonight. It's just something that we've noted. Second thing was that we met quite a bit, very often on this budget from November to February. We believe it was a challenging schedule for the public, for the staff, for the select board, and that was just another observation that we had. So, potential improvements in those two areas could be made. We really wanted to hear the select board's thoughts on that before we would ultimately bring you a budget process for fiscal 25 sometime in the next few months. That's when we would really be looking for your approval or direction on developing a budget for next year. So that's really all I have. And
great. And I don't think that there's a motion on this item.
No,
so
weren't looking for a motion.
Yeah. And so any kind of thoughts here would go and be incorporated into a presentation on a proposed budget schedule in the fall, or
in the late summer or fall. Yeah.
So with that, board, Liz?
Well, I was just having thought when John was talking that we all seem to like the idea of a offsite and maybe some sort of a Saturday morning budget discussion with everybody present might speed things along. Just a thought.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Other board members? Franz?
I remain a big fan of the long-term financial plan as part of the budget process. Having served on the representative town meeting finance committee and seeing how that was, yes, I did. Seeing how as did Liz, yes. She was good too. Seeing the comprehensive review of town planning and then the long-term financial plan be iterated year after year, it really became part of what I looked forward to in analyzing the budget and saying, yeah, this is going in the right direction, and also, spotting some potential bumps in the road. And seeing, okay, we can do this year, but 2-3 years down the road, we've got some other priorities that we have to look at and keep in mind as well. So anyway, I would very much like to see that incorporated forever into the budget process. So I hope that can be part of what we're looking at over the summer, or, at least at the beginning of the formal budget process in the fall.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Franz. Daniel.
Yeah. The sort of almost proposal of having like a dedicated, lengthier Saturday type meeting to review the budget, as opposed to a kind of every few weeks or every week kind of process. Like, there's some appeal to it. I think it does make the process more likely to be accessible. I think there are also downsides, obviously. One of which is we lose the opportunity to really dive into the work of each of the areas of the town operations. And I wouldn't say that we lose it completely. We just, it's going to be more of a high level summary. In my experience of the budget process, that budget meeting, and, actually these monthly financial reports are a chance to dig into the lines of each of those departments and ask questions about it. And in my experience, it's been the way that I've sort of learned about the nuances of town operations and learned about the work that goes on in those departments. And I guess I kind of wonder whether if we were to have a more sort of overview type process, whether we might end up getting to town meeting with a budget that people don't feel quite as informed about. And I wonder if that'll have any impact on whether the budgets can pass. I don't know. That's very much crystal ball kind of stuff. I'm not against it. I'd like to hear more about it as we get closer. And I also kind of support Franz's recommendation that the long-term financial plan goes back into that process. And I think last year was sort of a blip with that. My recollection is that usually in sort of spring, summer, we talk about it a little bit. Patrick might be able to help me with it. Liz?
Well, I just wanted to say that what I was envisioning was like belt and suspenders, the weekly meetings plus a day, just because like maybe we'll have the sessions in November with each department, but then like in December when we have a full budget, so when we can really have this offsite and discuss it, so that we just make sure that everybody, including the public, really understands it.
Okay, well now I'm going to speak for that a little bit. So okay. I think if I've read the sort of quasi proposal, not quite a proposal from the memorandum here, the idea is that we're hearing from town staff and also just in reflecting on the process that doing it kind of weekly is it's a lot. And I can speak from experience now that I don't think the select board operates particularly efficiently near the end of that process because meeting every single week and handling so many items, we start to really burn out by January. And then really important decisions need to be made in January because that's usually when we have our end of the time reflection. So I'm interested. What I would like in maybe trying to not do both, but maybe try the other version where we sort of alleviate a little bit of that. I agree with Daniel that it has its downsides. I think there's no real perfect way of doing this. So my request would be, could we maybe do a little bit of outreach on this proposal before we get to it coming back to the board on sort of how maybe RTM reps or how members of the public feel about a discussion on a weekend?
Yeah, I was wondering if you wanted us to reach out to the finance committee and get their opinions on different approaches, whether that would be useful.
I think it would.
Okay.
Personally. And I think that this all speaks to both transparency, improving the process because engagement helps the process. And we've seen that year in, year out that people speaking on items helps us from the public, from the municipal government. And then finally, Daniel's point, buy-in. If you know the budget and you've been part of the process, it's easier to really consider it at RTM. So yeah, I'm really intrigued, but I really want to make sure that we don't lessen it too much.
Okay. I just want to reiterate Daniel's thought that it is our opportunity to speak to each of the department heads about the workings of their department.
And I think in this proposal, we would still do that, but it would just be all in one day, right?
Sorry. Thank you. I would just like to add that it has been a goal of mine for some time now to increase accessibility around the budget and like understanding the budget and what it all means. So visual aids, infographics, we can do better. A few years back, we had a bit of an attempt at that with some pie charts. They went on display at the library. Then the pandemic happened. But, we just established a communications coordinator position. And if that position can't sort of improve our, presentation of budget material that's accessible across a wide spectrum of folks, then I'd be disappointed.
I would add to that, Daniel, that's also one of the things that some of this more modern financial software could help us do more directly. It's a lot of extra work to get to the point where you can put it into so I think that's kind of maybe a little bit tied to that, but the duly noted and having something that's a little more easy to understand and digest would be helpful.
But if you could just do that by pressing a couple buttons.
then it's then it doesn't take somebody all day to figure that out.
Yeah. Any other comments before I open to the? Yeah.
We've heard some good comments. I'm wondering how we're actually going to decide what we're going to do and what the time frame for that decision.
So as was said, so it's going to come back to the select board in the early fall or late summer with a proposed budget, like calendar budget process.
Right.
And
how are we going to get to that? Will you be soliciting further information from the board or other ideas or modifications, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. If the board has other thoughts after this meeting, please just let me know about those. I will reach out to the finance committee for sure, and maybe some others to get some additional feedback, and we'll put that all into a proposal for a fiscal 25 budget process.
And I guess this is not exactly a scheduling question. I'm just wondering how much the board members would be free to discuss this amongst us. You know, I mean, if it was just setting a meeting date, well, we can talk about that, but this is more of a process question.
I think a little bit, yeah. So, and the when that proposal from town staff comes to the board before the budget process starts, and we don't like it, we can modify it and talk about it more. My hope would be we get it soon enough that if there needs to be changes, we can implement them for.
Yeah, I think that's what I think.
Okay. Yeah. So anybody from the public wish to speak on this? Yes. Yeah.
Mine's more of a question. That money that the state gave to the Brattleboro, has that already been allocated?
Boy, that is, I don't really think that's particularly on topic.
No. It's going to be on topic. That's why I'm asking, because I'm going to say it right. The money for the fire department, I'm a fire and safety person, always have been, more than anything else. So that is, if there was money there, we could allocate some of that to the fire department so they'd have their 3 or 4 years to get themselves their paramedics. That's what I'm trying to say. So I was wondering if there's any of that money left.
So I think you're talking about ARPA funds.
Yes.
So yeah, so not really relevant to the FY25 budget discussion really, but I will answer your question very briefly that we have done a set aside of 1.7 million of the ARPA money for pending consideration of the future EMS decision for Brattleboro in September. And that's because there are potential options that the select board could choose that could utilize those funds. And so we don't want to allocate them other ways before we make a decision. There is still 900,000 that is available based with the 350 payback from what happened at RTM. If I have that right. And
so you still can get more people trained before Trans comes up with other things that would take the budget money, right? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what
Thank you.
You want that gavel?
All right. I don't see any hands on Zoom, and no other questions in the room. So in that case, board, I just want to end with. There's no motion. Just I just really appreciate spending a moment and reflecting on this. This is how we improve our processes by, doing a debrief. So thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to new business agenda item 9F, which is committee appointments. So we are looking at. We are just considering I would propose that we just consider the committee appointments for the committee vacancies that are not contested currently. So the Citizen Police Communications Committee, the CPCC, there are 2 vacancies and we have currently 6 applicants. The agenda setting committee would like to schedule interviews, and we couldn't do it this today because we usually do it at the beginning of the meeting. We have the executive session. So our hope is to do that next meeting. And so the agenda setting committee thought that we could consider appointments of the non-contested seats, which are the Arts Committee, the DRB, the DRB alternate, the honor roll, and the Senior Solutions Advisory Council. So those applicants are all in the backup material board. And there are a couple different ways that we can do it. We can approve it as a slate, which we have done in the past. And I am happy to take a motion in that way. But also we can also approve them one by one if the board would prefer.
So I will motion.
Oh, actually, I think Peter had it first. So
I will motion to approve the uncontested positions as a slate.
Excellent.
Who's this Wessel guy?
So
nothing about
Peter's made a motion. Franz, do you have a comment?
Well, I think Peter should have the right to speak to his motion first.
Oh, yeah. Would you like to speak to your motion, Peter?
No, but I heard Franz has open house meetings on Wednesday.
Oh yeah,
that's not the name.
That is such an excellent comment. Well, I just have a question about. I found in particular one of the questionnaires just didn't give me a real picture of why this person wants to be on the committee. Not to say anything bad about him because I don't know him. It's helpful for me to know a little bit more about the candidates than came across on my reading of the questionnaire. So, I mean, basically, I guess I had a little bit more sense of the other candidates and what they were up to. And yeah, this sketchy guy, Wessel, but at least, I know him, so I know what I'm getting in the deal. But there's a fellow named John Logia.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just don't know anything about him or, how good a fit that is or anything. So I'd be interested in hearing more before voting.
Can we just check to see if John is in the meeting?
He is.
Yep. So, John, if you would consider being interrogated by Franz.
His wife.
Hi. Hi. I don't know can I speak?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. My name is Lissa Weinman, and I'm the co-owner of 118 Elliott. John Logia is my business partner and husband. He was waiting on the call, but he ultimately had to leave for a gig because he's a musician, a painter, a filmmaker by professional training, most of his life, and an entrepreneur. It was really his vision that took the old dilapidated spick and span laundromat across from the fire station and made it into a really thriving community space and gallery that 118 Elliott is today. He's been involved in the arts his entire life. His paintings speak for themselves, and he's been a musician his entire life as well. A recent film that he produced was reviewed in the New York Times last year, Fire Music. So he's part of the creative economy of the town and has really never thought to step up to do public service like this, but he thought he might have some contributions to make, and I fully have encouraged him to do so. So that's who he is. We've been living here for 16 years now, and I think contributed a lot to the town, particularly through 118 Elliott. So I think that you'd be lucky to have him. Basically, he's thoughtful, creative, diplomatic, and collaborative.
Excellent. Wow.
That's exactly the kind of information I was hoping for.
Yeah. Lisa, thank you so much for your willingness to be interrogated there. And it sounds like John does have a lot to give, and we are grateful that he is willing to do so.
So one other issue that I think needs looking at is, is there some requirement for how long somebody has lived in town in order to be on the committee? Because, one of the other candidates has only been living here for 75 years. And, we just need to include that in our thinking.
A fair.
You're a real Vermonter now, aren't you?
Real position there.
If he came from away, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So right. any other comments, Board?
Yeah, I got a comment on what Franz just said. Franz is joking, and he uses sarcasm sometimes, and I don't find sarcasm as super helpful, quite frankly, in this work, because this is pretty sincere stuff. And I just want to be clear that like many people who are new to our community have a great deal to offer.
And welcome them.
And the quality of their application is really judged on what they bring to the committee as opposed to their length of time that they've lived in town. And I just want to say that like sincerely, because I believe it.
And thank you, Daniel. You're right about me.
I know. I know I am.
So I'll try to keep
encourage
it
you
under
to tone the sarcasm down.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, all right. Everybody
because
agrees with that.
Select board meetings are like a giant text message and sometimes hard to interpret.
Yeah, no emojis.
So there's a pending motion from Peter to approve the non-contested. Actually, I just wanted to make sure there's no other. I don't see any. Pending motion from Peter to approve the non-contested applicants in a slate. Absent any further discussion, Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries 5-0. I want to congratulate all of the people who have applied for these positions. I want to thank them for contributing to the town. The work of the committees is really important, and it's how we get things done. So thank you for your contributions. And with that, I believe there's just one more motion that I would consider as even. Liz.
I move to adjourn.
Liz made a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Going to carry 5-0. Thank you very much to BCTV. Thank you so much, Patrick. Thank you to our interpreters. And John, thank you.
Thank you.